Hello everyone, Silent here and welcome back to another Bedrock Edition tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to build a surprisingly simple and surprisingly powerful, fully AFK, playerless, and automatic Azalea tree farm. This thing will generate Azalea bushes, bone meal them into trees, and then automatically store all the logs into a cube maker that you can mine later. This does not require any player interaction at all. All you gotta do is turn on the farm and it will just start generating logs for you for free. It is honestly such a fun thing that we can do in the 1.17 update. So this tree farm has two main modes. It has the fully AFK version where it will automatically generate Azalea bushes and then grow those into trees. And then it also has another mode where you can actually manually plant things yourself. So you can come in here and plant down your Azalea bushes. Those will get grown into trees and of course automatically harvested. A really nice feature of this farm is that it's not just for Azalea trees. It also works really well for oak, birch, and jungle saplings. As you can see, we can plant those in, they will get bone mealed and grown into trees, just as you would expect, and of course that works with the birch and the jungle. The base model of this farm does not work with spruce, however, I'll be showing you how to make an upgrade at the end of the video, allowing you to use this farm with spruce, and that'll also allow you to get taller trees and get more wood per tree. So overall, just a nice little upgrade if you are wanting to use this farm for other tree types. So let's have a little bit more of a thorough demonstration of how this farm works. I have removed the roof and I have a couple of command blocks going to remove the leaves, simply so we can see a little bit better of what's actually happening on the inside. This farm works pretty fast and it's kind of hard to explain what exactly is happening, but essentially the player is going to plant the sapling there, or the farm will generate an azalea there. It's going to get bone mealed from this dispenser and grown up into a tree. All of the pistons are going to activate and either push the branches from these zones directly into the middle. This wall of pistons is going to activate and grab all the logs, bringing them to this location, at which point this wall of pistons will drag them over to here. From there, they are nearly out of the farm and fully harvested, so this wall of pistons will extend and bring your logs to this point. Once your logs reach that point right there, you can then grow another tree, as there's nothing obstructing the growth. Finally, this wall of pistons will activate, pushing everything into your final output, and then we simply have a couple of smart pistons that push everything into a cube maker. Over time, as you harvest more trees, this thing is going to get completely filled up with logs, and all of that's going to get pushed over into one giant cube until you end up with something like this. One of the nicest things about Bedrock Edition is you can instant mine logs with a stone axe. As long as you have efficiency on your axe and you have haste 2 from a beacon, you can instant mine logs of any type. So harvesting this thing is not going to be that big of a deal at all. And of course, you are wondering about the rates of the farm as well. There are two different rates for this farm, one of which is for the player placing mode, where you actually stand here and manually place all of the saplings. And for this mode, you'll get a new tree every 2.5 to 4.5 seconds. It honestly is really, really quick. However, you'll get about 4,500 logs per hour when growing oak or azalea on the base version. If you upgrade the farm and you start using spruce and birch and other things, then you will get more logs because the trees can grow taller. In playerless mode, you'll get a new tree every 3.5 to 49 or so seconds on average. Usually you get one pretty fast, but sometimes it does take a very long time, like a minute or so, which does significantly hurt the rates. However, on a fully AFK and playerless mode, you'll get about 1,150 or so logs per hour, completely for free and without any input from the player. It might not sound like that many, but that's 1,100 logs that you don't need to do anything for at all. You just need to flick a lever, and that is honestly pretty impressive. Before we get too far into the video, if you do enjoy this tutorial and you want to see many more of them in the future, then consider leaving a like, as it has a massive impact on the video and the channel as a whole. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you're new here and you haven't already, then consider subscribing. That way you don't miss future tutorials. I have many planned, and I think you're going to enjoy them greatly. So you might be wondering, how exactly does this azalea tree farm work? And honestly, it is pretty straightforward, and it does doesn't require that much automation either. We are simply bone mealing a piece of moss, and every now and again that will give you an azalea bush. It's not really a guaranteed thing, and then we can bone meal that and turn that into an azalea tree. So to automate that, all we're doing is bone mealing this lower piece of moss and waiting until that gives us an azalea bush at the upper layer. Once we get one right there, the system will bone meal that, turn it into a tree, and from there on out, it's just a regular tree farm. The Pistons take care of all of these leaves, and they put the logs into your cube maker. And at that point, the system basically resets. So we bone meal the lower moss again, turns that rooted dirt back into a moss block. Now, of course, we need a couple of Pistons to clear out the area, because of course we get this grass and we get those moss carpets. So we got to break those using these Pistons. But as you can see, this farm is honestly pretty quick. So of course, with this tree farm, you're going to be getting a lot of different seeds from all the grass. You're going to be getting moss carpets, and you're also going to be getting the azalea bushes from the lower moss. All of that stuff is collected into some lower hoppers and put into a chest for you. And as you can see, you end up with a lot of this stuff. So as you are running the farm on playerless mode, you will be stockpiling a lot of azalea, and then you can come in here, grab the azalea, put this thing on player mode, and then just start planting all of this stuff manually. Honestly, it's a pretty cool little thing, and it just basically gives you a bunch of free saplings. If you want to, you can throw all of this stuff into a composter and get a little bit of bone meal from it. If you're familiar with how azalea trees grow, then you may recognize that they pretty much always have this double log at the top, like they're always churned to the side, and they always have two logs at the same layer. However, we can actually prevent the azalea tree from growing that double log entirely. So it turns out that if you put some dirt blocks or some pistons or really just about anything at the cardinal directions on the third block in, you can prevent those double logs from generating entirely. As you can see, we only have a single log here, and now it's basically just an awkwardly shaped oak tree. So our tree farm only needs to activate a single time in order to clear all the logs from the chamber and grow a new tree. This does mean that we're losing one log per tree that we grow. However, it simplifies the farm massively. We don't need any triple piston extenders. We don't need to double activate the farm. The farm is significantly cheaper, easier to build, and it has a smaller footprint as well. And let's hop into the tutorial, shall we? For your convenience, there's going to be a full materials listed down in the description of the video. That way you know exactly what you need to build this. We're going to need a 12 block wide by 11 block area for the tree farm, and that is going to be 12 blocks above the ground. Now keep in mind, to the right of the build, you're going to need a 14 by 14 area for the actual cube maker to store all of your logs and mining them. It's very important that you chunk align your tree farm. If you do not chunk align this, then chunk borders can cause some unforeseen issues with your tree farm, and that could potentially break some things. If you don't know how to chunk align, I would suggest you check the description of the video for some resources on how to do so. We're going to start building by going to the bottom left corner of your build area and count over by 6 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now count in by 5. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Place in your marker block right there. And now we're going to place in a temporary block right there, a dropper facing that direction, and then a dropper above that facing upwards like so. Place in some hoppers on the back sides of those, and a double chest above it in that orientation like so, and that is going to be your bone meal refilling system. We now want a dispenser right there, and a dispenser right there. And finally, go ahead and remove these 2 blocks and put 2 moss blocks like that. And this right here is where you're actually going to be planting your saplings and your azalea inside of your tree farm. Now loop around the back side of this. We want to place in 4 blocks in these locations, and then remove that block. Place in 3 redstone dust, another redstone dust, a comparator right there, and then 2 more pieces of redstone dust. Put that on subtract mode, and then place in a solid block right there. Go ahead and place a lever on that block, and that is going to be the main on switch for your farm to bone meal all of your saplings. We're going to place a redstone torch to the left of that, and then a line of solid blocks and 1 up into the diagonal just like so. We want redstone dust there, 2 repeaters on 4 ticks right there, and then a redstone torch. You want a piece of glass right there, and then 3 blocks in those locations. Put redstone on both of those, and then a repeater right there on 4 ticks. To finish off this system, we're going to place an observer facing that piece of redstone dust. To place in a piston right there with redstone dust above it, and then another piston facing that direction right there. This is your secondary clock, and we can place another lever on this one. So this clock will basically reset your moss, destroying all of the carpets and the grass, which you do not want. And if you ever want to plant things manually, then you simply flick that lever. And now we need to install the hopper floor of the build. So go to this moss block and go over by 1 and then over by 3 to the right. We're going to place in a double chest right there, and then 2 hoppers facing downwards into that double chest. Extend a line of hoppers all the way to the left side of the build, loop that around the corner to the back side, and then place on 1 piece of redstone dust to power the top dispenser right there. We're then going to extend another line of hoppers out the back side of this one towards the back side of the farm, place in another line of hoppers until you reach there, and then we simply need 1 hopper there, 1 there, and finally 1 right there. And this is what the entirety of your hopper floor should look like. And now we're going to install all of the piston layouts and piston pillars, which is going to be the foundations of all of our walls. So we're going to start with the right side wall and place in yourself 3 temporary blocks right here. Place in 2 sticky pistons facing forwards, and then another one right there, and an observer facing towards the right. Remove your temporary blocks and then build this up by 3 blocks tall. So basically just replicate that going upwards on the other layers. We're then going to place in 2 sticky pistons right here, a regular piston in front of that, and then an observer facing to the right on that side. Facing towards the front of the build, we want a temporary block above that redstone torch, 2 sticky pistons right there, regular piston in front of that, and an observer facing to the right of that one. For the left side piston wall, we want 3 temporary blocks in these locations, simply so that we can place in 2 sticky pistons there, regular piston, and then an observer facing to the right on that side. For the back side wall, we need 1 temporary block right there, 1 sticky piston like so, a temporary block behind that one, and then 2 sticky pistons to the left of it like that. We want sticky piston in front of that one, and then an observer facing towards the left. We're going to place in ourselves 1 piston right here, get ourselves a temporary block, and then 1 sticky piston right there like so. This is your exact piston and observer layout for the build. Make sure everything is placed correctly and in the correct orientation, otherwise things will be broken. Did you double check everything? I hope that you did, because now we're going to be extending all of these towers 5 blocks tall. So however we have built things, simply extend it up to the 5 block level, and that is all there is to it. The azalea trees only ever grow 5 blocks tall, so we only need to make our piston walls 5 blocks tall. And now all of our walls are exactly 5 blocks tall, and this is exactly what things should look like. It's really quite very straightforward, but make sure you get the step correct, otherwise literally nothing is going to work. So now it is time for the log detection redstone and all of the spaghetti that powers all of our piston walls. It might look a little bit messy, but ultimately it is very simple and rather straightforward. We're going to place in ourselves a comparator right here facing into a solid block. So this comparator is going to read this dispenser anytime that there is a log right there or any form of solid block. However, this is only going to turn on when there's actually something inside of your dispenser. So if your farm runs out of bone meal, then your tree is not going to get harvested. So now we're going to place 3 solid blocks in these locations, redstone dust right there, a repeater right here on 2 ticks, repeater right there on 4, and then we want 4 pieces of redstone dust going across the build like so. Also, don't worry about that observer facing the redstone dust. It will detect this when it turns on and off, but that is not going to be an issue. So now we're going to wire up our front and left side piston walls. So place in a block right here with a repeater on it facing into another block going upwards, 1 to the side. We want a solid block here and a solid block there, piece of glass, and then 1 more solid block like so. We can place a redstone dust on top of all of this, and that will power all of the pistons of that piston wall. Place in 1 more block right here, and then we want 2 blocks to the left of it like so, and then simply connect it to that piston wall. You want 2 solid blocks behind those sticky pistons and 1 solid block right there, and then simply run redstone dust along all of this, and that is going to power your entire left wall. And now we're going to wire up the redstone for the first half of this piston wall, so basically this little section right here. So go down to the bottom, we want a little bit of a zigzag of glass going upwards. Place in yourselves 2 2 solid blocks behind those ones and 2 solid blocks behind those pistons, and then simply cover all of this in redstone dust like so. Place in yourself 1 slab there and 1 there, and then a button on both of those to redirect that redstone. It might not look like it, but without that button, the redstone is actually pointing into this block and it would be powering this piston. However, if we redirect that, as you can see, it's no longer powering that piston. And now for the second half of the right wall, we're going to go downwards below this glass zigzag and place in a solid block with a piece of redstone dust on it. And then we want a few blocks along and a bunch of repeaters on top of this. 1 repeater on 1 tick and then 3 repeaters on 4 ticks after that. Send that into a solid block and then 2 pieces of redstone dust right here. A solid block upwards with another piece of redstone. And then we simply want 2 solid blocks there, and then right there as well. Place a redstone dust above those, 2 pieces of glass, and then redstone above all of that, 2 pieces of glass, and redstone above all of that right there. Now, at the very top, these 2 redstone lines are going to canoodle, so place in yourself a solid block. And now to wire up the left side of the back wall, we're going to go down to this corner, place in a block here, and then 7 redstone dust in a straight line. Turn that to the corner by 1, and then you want 2 solid blocks right here with a repeater in between them. We're then going to go ahead and place in a block up like so, another block up right there, and then 1 block up in that area kind of like so. Go ahead and place a redstone dust above all of that. Now go ahead and place in a glass block right there, and then in these 2 locations, so another zigzag. You want 2 solid blocks right here, 2 solid blocks right there. Cover all of this in the redstone dust all the way up the zigzag, and then 2 pieces of redstone dust at the very top going into a solid block. And finally, we need to wire up these 2 sets of pistons right here. So go to the back side of the build where we have these repeaters and place in a block right here, another block up, and then 2 blocks over. We want a repeater right here on 3 ticks, redstone dust, repeater on 4 ticks going into a block, and then a piston facing upwards like so. Place 5 glass above that like so, and then a solid block at the very top, and that should line up with the solid block that we placed earlier. Finally, place in yourself a piece of redstone right there, glass above both of those, redstone above both of those, glass above that, and redstone above that like so. And now we need to place in 2 upper slabs in these locations, and in these locations right here. Redstone on both of those, and a button on both of these. Again, this is to redirect the redstone dust. Without the buttons, the redstone would power your logs in this location and break that piston wall over there. We actually need to temporarily remove this line of pistons on the front side. That way we can actually place in the observers facing those 5 glass blocks that we just put in earlier. So once you have the observers in, go ahead and put your pistons back in place. And now flip around to the back side of that redstone, place in 2 solid blocks right here, a lever which will be powering a repeater, and then you want 2 blocks in these locations, redstone dust on both of those, a glass block right there, and then simply have a normal piston facing downwards like so, and 2 pieces of redstone dust. Basically, whenever this circuit activates, it's going to push these glass blocks upwards, activating all of your observers, which will activate this line of pistons, and then this piston simply pushes all of those glass blocks back down and resets it. So now all the walls are properly wired up, we need to install the final bit of redstone for the main farm, and this is going to be the circuit that turns off your bone meal dispenser. So go to the back part of the build to this repeater, and we're going to mine out 3 blocks in these locations, and then 3 blocks in those locations as well. Place in 4 pieces of redstone dust like so, a comparator going into that block, redstone dust, and then a comparator going backwards like this to create a pulse extender. We're then going to mine out these 2 blocks right here, and then place in a repeater, and that's going to turn off your comparator clock. This comparator clock is finely tuned so that your bone meal dispensers stay turned off the entire time that your farm is harvesting, and as soon as your logs reach this location right here, then your bone meal dispenser turns back on, allowing you to farm more trees. That way you don't waste any bone meal at all. Make sure you place a solid block above this piece of redstone dust, that way your pulse extender doesn't power your back wall. This block is incredibly important. Small bug alert for 1.17.0 point 10, moss and moss carpets can be pushed and pulled by pistons. If this is a bug, they should pop off as items, just like torches and other various items, and this bug will be fixed very soon. But for the time being, in order to collect all the items and prevent the carpets from getting pushed around and breaking the farm, we need this hole right here, and we need this hole right here. So if we fall down in here, we need to set up some basic item collection for these two holes. So basically place in a hopper to that chest, a hopper right here to collect items from that piston. So loop that around until you have a hopper directly underneath this hole right here, and then simply put in some glass blocks. That way you don't lose any of your items. So this bug should be fixed very soon, and you can test this yourself in game to see if it's fixed. But until then, this is the setup that we need for our hopper line and for our underneath hopper line. Once the bug is fixed, you can simply go ahead and remove all of these extra glass blocks and all of these extra hoppers because they are not necessary. You can also go ahead and rotate your chest to be in this direction and raise that up by a block. You can also put in yourself a hopper right there, and then simply go up into the upper areas and place in a hopper right there like so. That will collect all of the items from your moss, all of your moss carpets, all of your seeds, and all of the additional azalea bushes that you get from the lower one. And now we need to encase the entirety of the tree farm and build a box around this entire tree chamber. So the first thing that you want to do is go ahead and place some glass blocks in front of each one of these observers, and then place in a glass block right there. Build a pillar of dirt going up to the same layer as these piston walls, and then 2 blocks above it. We're then going to place in 2 layers of glass on that side, and 2 layers of glass on that side like so. Flip around to this corner, and now we want to place in a glass block there, a temporary block, and then another glass block on the corner. Extend that across until you can fill in all of these areas like so. Put in some glass blocks in front of those observers, and then place in yourself a pillar of 5 dirt going vertical like that. Fill in those additional wall blocks, these additional wall blocks, and of course, don't forget to have some additional glass in front of the observers on that side like so. That's most of our walls done, but now we're going to take a break from that for a second and place in our staircase. You can have this thing be as large or as small as you want it to be, really, and I'm just going to make it 3 wide because why not? It gives you more places to stand. So now we're going to place in ourselves a glass block in front of all 4 of these observers, an additional glass block right there, and then a pillar of 5 dirt in this area. Place in yourself the 2 layers of glass on that side, and then the glass in this side like so. Now that is the entire encasement done. I'm not sure how exactly you want to customize this area. You're probably going to want to stand about right here and then aim at your moss block to plant your saplings, but that part is pretty customizable. As long as you don't break the redstone, you can do just about anything you want in this zone. And now we're going to install the roof of this thing, so go ahead and put an additional layer going all the way around this entire build, and then we're simply going to have a solid block at the same layer directly above the middle moss block. The roof cap is going to be going directly above this thing, so just go ahead and fill that in with some glass blocks too in all of these areas, and then if you want to, you can also put some additional glass blocks in that area too. So now we can go ahead and test the build. Make sure you put some bone meal into your chest, and more importantly, put some bone meal into your main dispenser right there as well. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen. So now we can turn on the main mode, and we should see some things activate. Those pistons are firing, and we're getting some azalea and bushes and stuff growing there as well, which is fantastic. And now we're going to go ahead and turn on the player placing mode. So just go ahead and test this out by placing in 1 azalea bush or an oak sapling. That'll get grown, harvested, and bam, it is now pushed out the backside of the build. Very, very nice indeed. I would recommend testing this at least 3 or 4 times just to make sure the system is reliable, and if anything breaks, double check your redstone and make sure all of your timings are correct, and make sure you are not missing any redstone dust anywhere. So now that we've tested the build a couple times, you probably have a line of logs out the backside that looks something like this. We need to remove all of the logs that are further than 1 block past this piece of redstone line. We're going to place in a column of pistons right here that is 5 blocks tall, and then we're going to place in another column of pistons on the other side that is also 5 blocks tall like so. We're basically going to make a couple of smart pistons right here. So place in a solid block underneath that one with a redstone torch, 2 blocks right here, redstone dust, and then a repeater on 2 ticks like so. Placing yourself 2 solid blocks right there with redstone dust above it, and now we're going to be making a zigzag of glass going to the top of the build, and we're also going to be placing in solid blocks on those ones as well. So basically just go all the way up until you power all of those pistons. Now, whenever there is a log right there, that is going to activate all of those pistons, pushing the logs over into this zone. So now we're going to place in a solid block underneath that piston, redstone torch right there, solid block next to it, and then a piece of redstone dust. Now go ahead and place solid blocks every other block going up that column of pistons, and place in redstone on all of that as well. We're going to place in a zigzag of glass blocks going up, cover those in redstone, and then another zigzag of glass, and that is your secondary smart piston done. So whenever you get a line of trees pushed into this one, it's going to get pushed across and then pushed forwards as well. So now that we have something like this, we're going to place in a line of pistons going 10 blocks across, starting right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And now you need to make this entire thing 5 blocks tall. Now that you have all of your pistons in place, we're going to place in ourselves a solid block right here with a redstone torch off of it like so, and a piece of redstone dust right there. Place in yourself a solid block there, and then we want a line of solid blocks going all the way across the backside of the build, a line of solid blocks right there, and now we're simply going to put ourselves a few pieces of glass in those 4 locations, cover all of this in redstone dust, cover this entire back line in redstone dust, the entire upper line in redstone dust, and all of these pistons in redstone dust as well, ending off with a solid block right there. Now, whenever your tree farm pushes enough logs to go all the way across the build until it gets above that redstone torch, that's going to activate the entirety of the piston wall and create one giant cube. Now that you have that done, we need to count out by 12 blocks from this corner. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We're going to place in ourselves a solid block underneath that with a redstone torch, and then a block to the side of it, and then kind of staircase that down a little bit and make a redstone line going down like that. The redstone line should be powered as we are building this. This redstone line is essentially going to go down and across, and it's going to meet up with your comparator clock all the way over there. It's going to be a very ugly redstone line. So before you place in a redstone dust right here, and that powers your entire thing, make sure you have a solid block to cut that redstone line and prevent them from connecting. So we're essentially going to have this redstone line go all the way to here, into a repeater, and then a solid block, and that is going to churn off your bone meal dispensers and prevent your farm from creating more logs and backing itself up and breaking itself. Now we can go ahead and remove this line of temporary blocks. Congratulations! You now have a fully automatic and playerless AFK tree farm in your Minecraft world, but we are not done yet. If you've come this far and you've built this in your world, you probably want to upgrade it. That way you can use it really well for oak and spruce and jungle and birch. Turn it into a 5-type tree farm and allow this thing to reach its maximum potential. So the upgrade that we're making to this tree farm is a rather simple one. We are going to be extending all of the piston walls to be 7 tall instead of 5 tall. This will allow your farm to handle 7 tall trees. So for example, you can get 7 tall oak trees, you can get 7 tall spruce trees, and you need this upgrade in order for spruce trees to work in the build. You can also get 7 tall birch trees, and you can get 7 tall jungle trees. Using this upgrade is going to increase your rates and also basically just make the farm run better for these 4 different tree types. This upgrade has absolutely no effect on Azalea whatsoever. Azalea only ever grows to be 5 blocks tall, which is why the main build of this tutorial only handles 5 tall trees. Firstly, we're going to upgrade the front piston wall, so remove these 4 glass blocks. Go ahead and place in yourself 4 additional sticky pistons, 2 regular pistons, and 2 observers. Break out of here, and now we're going to extend the redstone upwards. You want to put some glass blocks in front of those observers, 2 solid blocks right there, glass there, and then simply put yourself some redstone dust on all 3 of those. For the left wall, we're going to go ahead and remove these 4 blocks, remove that block and that redstone dust, place in 4 sticky pistons right there, 2 observers facing to the right, and 2 regular pistons facing forwards. Go outside the build once more and place in yourself 2 solid blocks there. Once you have those 2 solid blocks in place, we're going to place in a repeater right here, and then 2 glass blocks like so, redstone dust above all of that, and redstone there and there. Finally, a solid block right here, and don't forget the glass blocks in front of your observers. For the right piston wall, we're going to remove these 4 glass blocks, place in 4 sticky pistons, 2 regular pistons, and then the 2 observers facing to the side. Go on the outside and place in another block right there. Place in 2 pieces of glass blocks, and then simply run redstone above all of that like so. We now need a block right here, and we're going to place in another slab with a button on top of it like so. And of course, don't forget the glass blocks in front of your observers. For the second half of the right wall, it's a pretty similar process. Remove all of these blocks, place in your sticky pistons, your observers facing towards the right, and of course your sticky pistons there. Looping around to the outside of the build, we're going to place in another solid block right there, place in some glass blocks staircasing upwards, redstone dust above all of that, and then 1 additional solid block right there to cut that redstone line. And now we need to adjust the back wall of pistons, so we're simply going to basically remove all of this right here and raise that up by a couple of blocks. So remove that block, place in 2 additional glass blocks, 1 block right there, 2 solid blocks to the side, lever, flick that, repeater right there, and then a solid block there and up like so. 2 redstone dust, a glass block, and then a piston facing downwards with redstone dust above both of those. Looping around to the inside of the build, we need to remove all of these glass blocks, place in 2 observers facing those glass blocks, place in 2 regular pistons right there, and then 2 sticky pistons like so. And wiring up the outside of that is just as easy as it sounds. We place in 2 additional glass blocks with redstone above both of those, and then we get ourselves a couple of slabs at this layer, button above that one, and then a redstone dust right there. And finally, we need to do the other back piston wall, so remove that block, that redstone, and those 4 glass blocks. Place in your 4 sticky pistons, your other 2 sticky pistons, and then your 2 observers facing to the left. Going on the outside, place your glass in front of the observers, get 2 solid blocks at those locations, 2 glass blocks on top of those ones, and then redstone above all of this with a solid block right there. Now we need to extend the smart pistons upwards, so 2 additional pistons right there, block and a redstone dust, and then of course you just continue up this elevator of glass and do that for the other side as well. 2 pistons, a block, and then redstone above it, and then you simply put your glass above those right there too. And now for upgrading the cube maker, you need to remove that block and all of these pieces of redstone dust to put another 2 layer of pistons going all the way across the build, loop around to the back side and put another line of blocks right there with redstone dust above each of those blocks. And now we need to change up this redstone slightly, so place in a glass block right here with redstone dust and remove that one, and then remove that one as well. Place in another glass block, a repeater right there going into a solid block, and then simply have a piece of glass there, another piece of glass there, and finally one right there. Redstone dust above all of that, and then a redstone line going all the way across the top of the build, and finally a regular block there. Grab yourself a lever and place it down here temporarily. If you flick that, every single piston on your wall should extend. And now we need to extend our roof, so remove the top layer of the roof here, and then we simply need to remove that block and extend up the entire thing by 1 block. It should be a total of 2 above all of your pistons and your walls of redstone and all that good stuff. And now that you've extended it up by 1, you can go ahead and install the glass roof once more. So now we need to add an oak mode that is going to prevent the large oak trees from growing. This is a very simple thing to do. You need to place in yourself a redstone lamp right here with a lever on the underside of that. Grab in yourself a redstone torch, and then simply make yourself a torch tower going all the way up this build up until this point right here. Now you need to get yourself a sticky piston right on this block. That is going to be lined up with the middle of the build. Place a redstone block on front of that, and then go ahead and remove these 2 blocks. Place in a couple of temporary blocks, and now we need 2 sticky pistons facing downwards in those locations like so. You can remove those 2 blocks and put a solid block on front of that sticky piston. And now we need to get ourselves another temporary block right there. Place an observer facing that temporary block. You may need to go down a layer to make this happen. Now that you have that facing upwards, you can remove the block, make another observer face that one, get a repeater right there on 4 ticks, a solid block right there, solid block right there, block there, and right there as well, and finally 2 pieces of redstone dust. So whenever you flick this lever, that is going to push a block down from the ceiling 2 blocks, and that will prevent the large oak trees from growing. That way you don't have any branches in here, and your entire farm does not break. So this is only necessary when growing oak saplings in the upgraded version. If you notice any logs are getting left in the middle of the room on your upgraded version, that is because we've added this repeater to the left side wall, so some of the branches aren't getting pushed to the middle of the room in time to be retracted by the back wall. All we need to do to fix that is go around the back side and add another tick of delay to this repeater, so make sure this is on 2 ticks. If that causes any issues on the right side wall where logs are getting stuck in this position or something else is broken, then all you need to do is make sure that this repeater is on 2 ticks as well. This video has taken an incredibly long time to record and even longer to design these tree farms, so if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do leave a like. Again, it really does help out the video and the channel a ton, and thank you ever so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and of course, if you're new here and you want to see more tutorials like this in the future, then consider subscribing, that way you don't miss any. Otherwise, I'll see you down in the comment section and in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and then there was silence.